So hey guys, sorry if you can hear noises, my parents are watching TV. I'm gonna read some more of this book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I will be done with this book soon. I've pretty much read almost everything in here. Let me find the page that we're on in this book. If you've been watching all these videos, thank you so much. Okay, so High Beams. This is the story. That's the name of it. The girl driving the old blue sedan was a senior at the high school. She lived on a farm about 8 miles away and used the car to drive back and forth. He had driven into town that night to see a basketball game. Now she was on her way home. As she pulled away from the school, she noticed a red pickup truck follow her out of the parking lot. A few minutes later, the truck was still behind her. I guess we're going in the same direction, she thought. She began to watch the truck in her mirror when she changed her speed. The driver of the truck changed his speed. When she passed a car, so did he. Then he turned on his high beams, flooding her car with light. Oh, this is the killer in the back seat. It's just called high beams in this one. Okay. He then... Okay, hold on. Then he turned on his high beams, flooding her car with light. He left them on for almost a minute. He probably wants to pass me, she thought, but she was becoming uneasy. Usually she drove home over a back road. Not too many people went that way, but when she turned onto the road, so did the truck. I've got to get away from him, she thought, and she began to drive faster. Then he turned his high beams on again. After a minute, he then turned them off. Then he turned them on again and off again. She drove even faster, but the truck driver stayed right behind her. Then he turned his high beams on again. Once more, her car was ablaze with light. What is he doing, she wondered. What does he want? Excuse me. What does he want? Then he turned them off again. But a minute later, he had them on again, and he left them on. At last, she pulled into her driveway, and the truck pulled in right behind her. She jumped from the car and ran to her house. Call the police, she screamed at her father. Out in the driveway, she could see the driver of the truck. He had a gun in his hand. When the police arrived, they started to arrest him, but he pointed to the girl's car. You don't want me, he said. You want him. Crouched behind the driver's seat, there was a man with a knife. After the driver of the truck explained it, the man slipped into the girl's car just before she left the school. He saw it happen, but there was no way he could stop it. He thought about getting the police, but he was afraid to leave her, so he followed her car. Each time the man in the back seat reached up to overpower her, the driver of the truck turned on his high beams. Then the man dropped down, afraid that someone might see him. So yeah, that one's like pretty much basically the killer in the back seat, but it's called High Beams in here. So, okay, so this is The Babysitter. I did this urban legend like on my channel already, but this one is from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Mine was just from like remembering the story and everything. So let's do this one. The Babysitter. It was 9 o'clock in the evening. Everybody was sitting on the couch in front of the TV. There was Richard, Brian, Jenny, and Doreen, the babysitter. The telephone rang. Doreen's my granny's name, by the way. Maybe it's your mother, said Doreen. She picked up the phone. Before she could say a word, a man laughed hysterically and hung up. Who was it? Asked Richard. Some nut, said Doreen. What did I miss? At 9:30, the phone rang again. Doreen answered it. It was the man who had called before. I'll be there soon, he said, and he laughed and hung up. Who was it? The children asked. Some crazy person, she said. Almost 10 o'clock, the phone rang again. Jenny got to it first. Hello, she said. It was the same one. It was sorry, I can't talk. It was the same man. 1 more hour, he said, and he laughed and hung up. He said 1 more hour. What did he mean? Asked Jenny. Don't worry, said Doreen. It's somebody fooling around. I'm scared, said Jenny. About 10:30, the telephone rang once more. When Doreen picked it up, the man said, pretty soon now, and he laughed. Why are you doing this? Doreen screamed, and he hung up. Was it that guy again? Asked Brian. Yes, said Doreen. I'm going to call the operator. I'm going to call the operator and complain. The operator told her to call back if it happened again, and she would try to trace the call. At 11 o'clock, the telephone rang again. Doreen answered it. "Very soon now," the man said, and he laughed and hung up. Doreen called the operator. Almost at once, she called back. That person is calling from my telephone upstairs," she said. "You better leave. I'll get the police." Just then a door upstairs opened. A man they had never seen before started down the stairs towards them. As they ran away from the house, he was smiling in a very strange way. A few minutes later, the police found him there and arrested him. So basically, these are like more tamer versions of some of the urban legends that you probably heard. So yeah, that's why it's not as scary, I guess you could say. And this is just like the next like chapter for like what's gonna be. That's the name. See, look, it just says this chapter has the same title as the first chapter, but the stories in the first chapter are meant to scare you. The ones in this chapter, are meant to make you laugh. I'll do one more story in this section because my throat is killing me, and then we'll finish this another time. But we're getting close to finishing this book. A widow lived alone on the top floor of an apartment house. One morning, her telephone rang. "Hello," she said. "This is the Viper," a man said. "I'm coming up." "Somebody is fooling around," she thought, and hung up. Half an hour later, the telephone rang again. It was the same man. "It's the Viper," he said. "I'll be up soon." The widow didn't know what to think, but she was getting frightened. Once more, the telephone rang. Again, it was the Viper. "I'm coming up now," he said. She quickly called the police. They said they would be right over. When the doorbell rang, she sighed with relief. "They are here," she thought. But when she opened the door, there stood a little old man with a bucket and a cloth. "I am the Viper," he said. "I wish to wash," or he says wash, and to invite the windows. Okay. That one was kind of anticlimactic. I'll read one more. Changed my mind. This one's called The Attic. Hopefully it's better. A man named Rupert lived with his dog in a house deep in the woods. Rupert was a hunter and a trapper. The dog was a big German shepherd named Sam. Rupert had raised Sam from a pup. Almost every morning, Rupert went hunting and Sam stayed behind and guarded the house. One morning, as Rupert was checking his traps, he got the feeling that something was wrong at home. He hurried back as fast as he could, but when he got there, he found that Sam was missing. He searched the house and the woods nearby, but Sam was nowhere to be seen. He called, but the dog did not answer. For days, Rupert looked for Sam, but he could not find no trace of him. Finally, he gave up and went back to his work. But one morning, he heard something moving in the attic. He picked up his gun, and he thought I'd better be quiet about this. So he took off his boots, and in his bare feet, he began to climb the attic stairs. He slowly took one step, then another, until at last he reached the attic door. He stopped outside listening, but he didn't hear a thing. Then he opened the door and, Then usually somebody will ask, why did Rupert scream? The storyteller the point of the storyteller stops as he finished. Then somebody will ask, why did Rupert scream? The storyteller replies, you scream too if you stepped on a nail in your bare feet. Okay, so these are supposed to be more funny at the end of this book, so I'm going to stop right there for now. I'll probably pre-film another video, reading the rest of this book, or some more parts in it. But I'm going to go for now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.